time having arrived, I call the regularly scheduled Council Finance Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, before we go to item number 1, I believe Mayor Sullivan is here just for a quick announcement.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I know you all received my email today. I'm just so excited to be here tonight to introduce to you Acting Police Chief Brenda Perez. I am so excited about this endeavor, but I just want to make it clear because there were a lot of rumors going around the police department that Sullivan was going to hire someone external. From day one, I said it needed to be an internal candidate. We had 5 applicants. I want to applaud the other 4 dedicated applicants. But Brenda, as the acting chief and soon to be permanent chief when she's confirmed by you and ratified by you in several weeks, is really a breath of fresh air with her experience, both at law enforcement, Brockton Police, being a Brocktonian, Brockton High grad, and her military experience. A lot of you know her. She's appeared here many times. She is the real deal, and she and I have a shared vision for a better Brockton that all of you, I know, will support. So the acting chief is here tonight, and I would ask him.
Chief.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Mayor Sullivan for his commitment to public safety. I'm honored. I look forward to working with the citizens of Brockton and with city councilors and state officials to make a better Brockton. We can do this together. So I appreciate it and I look forward to working with all of you.
An example of her commitment is she hit the ground running. Attorney General Maura Healey, Massachusetts AG, was here today. The acting chief was the first one in the door to talk to the AG. So when she says she's ready, believe me, she is ready. So we will be back again. I will file it with the clerk. I want to thank the city clerk, Tim Cruz, for arranging his schedule today to accommodate it. The swearing-in was done in his office. And again, I am just so excited to have the acting chief, soon to be permanent chief, Brenda Perez, before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. All right, Madam Clerk, item number 1.
Appointment of Eddie Sannon of Brockton, Mass. 02301 as a constable in the city of Brockton for a term of 3 years. Invited Eddie Sannon.
Is Mr. Sannon here? Councilors?
I'll make a motion to move this to the end of the meeting. And
second.
Thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? It has been moved to the end of the meeting.
Appointment of Wayne Lake of Brockton, Mass. as a constable in the city of Brockton for a term of 3 years. Invited Wayne Lake.
How are you? If you'd like to come up and say anything, you're more than welcome.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
On the motion.
On the motion, Councilor Nicastro.
Good evening, Mr. Lake. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to point out, Mr. Lake, this is a reappointment, right?
Correct.
You've been
Yes. Yes, this is my third. Yes, my third.
Your third time, yes. I noticed a deficiency with Mr. Lake's application. The state law requires that that an attorney serve as one of the recommendations and references, and there is not an attorney among these people. So I wanted to suggest that we continue this to the next Finance Committee meeting to allow Mr. Lake the time to get an attorney so he'll be in compliance with state law.
The new application didn't have an attorney. It just said 5 references.
I know, I saw that, but the state law requires an attorney.
Okay.
And I suggested to the city solicitor today that the directions be edited to point that out.
Okay, when is the next meeting? Because my current expires on the 16th of April.
In 2 weeks, right?
The 19th.
How about
the next meeting's, 2 weeks. Patriots Day will be on Tuesday. Give them the week to do it and then but get a signature. As this stands, if your term runs out until someone's appointed in your stead, you still hold,
All right, and I just want to point out, I'm still in the military and I won't be here in the next month or so. I'm on ordered still, so I'm going to be out of state.
So
But I'll try to get it immediately.
When do you
as it
depart?
stands,
I'm already on orders right now, so I'm just here to do this, but I'm going to be out of state and moving around the country,
Okay.
so.
I'll speak to the city solicitor in the morning and ask her if someone in her office can
Okay.
be in touch with you. It's you know,
Not
it's
a
just the
problem.
signature of an attorney,
Not a problem.
okay?
All right.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Counselor Farwell, followed by Mendez, and Counselor Azak.
Actually, Counselor Azak had her hand up before I did.
I apologize.
I just
Counselor
wanted to
Azak.
actually, at this point, ratify my motion, withdraw it, and then make a motion to pass this favorably to the full city council, and allow Mr. Lake to bring in his, have the signature of the attorney on it, so we don't delay this. I think we can do that. I mean,
Second.
because the application doesn't state that he needed it, so.
All right, so give him, you know,
A
keep
week.
moving. Yeah, keep moving until the full council meeting next week. All right. Council, is there anyone else? Counselor Mendez, you still want to speak on this issue?
No, that's okay. We can proceed that way. That's-
Well, the
Thank
motion
you.
has been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. So we voted to approve you.
Subject
And
to-
then, yeah, Counselor Nicastro, the counselors are looking for, you know, a recommendation from an attorney.
Okay.
Which, you know, when we vote, the final vote next week, they're looking for that by then.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Of Derby Joy Saint of Brockton, Mass. as a constable in the city of Brockton for a term of 3 years. Invited Derby Joy Saint.
How are you? Good, yourself? Good. You have anything you'd like to say to the counselors?
I'm very excited to start working on my new certificate constable, so that's all I have to say.
Motion to recommend favorable.
Second.
Counselors, the motion has been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appointment of Bernie Hassan of Brockton, Mass. to the Parking Authority for a 5-year term ending March 2027. Invited Bernie Hassan.
How are you?
Mr. President?
Good to see you. Counselors, anything for Mr. Hassan?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full
Second.
city council.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you, ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Appointment of Jamie Hodges of Brockton, Mass. to Zoning Board of Appeals, alternate member for a 3-year term ending March 2025. Invited Jamie Hodges.
Good evening, Ms. Hodges.
Good evening.
Anything you'd like to say to the counselors?
I do. I just want to say a few things. As you know, my name is Jamie Hodges, and I am interested in becoming an alternate member on the Zoning Board of Appeals. A little bit about my background is I was born and raised in Brockton, 2012 graduate. I have both my bachelor's and my master's degree in business management. And I'm interested in not only serving the city, but being more involved in my community as a whole. From doing research, I know that the Zoning Board of Appeals meets the second Tuesday of every month. These meetings are live streamed on YouTube and on Zoom. I've had the privilege of viewing many different meetings on YouTube, along with attending some meetings that were on Zoom. I feel that in order to be an effective member of the zoning board, I'm willing to attend seminars, read books, and also work with existing members to learn everything I need to learn to be successful at this position. I am confident that I will master the knowledge needed to be an effective member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I will carefully review the cases which are presented to the board, and I will ask appropriate questions when needed. I have a basic understanding of the zoning laws. Zoning laws are used by the community to regulate the use of land and buildings and to protect the health, safety, and the general welfare of inhabitants. I want to just say I'm grateful for the mayor's nomination along with the city council for considering me for the alternate position on the zoning board. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appointment of Dr. Larry Green of Brockton, Mass. as an alternate for the Council on Aging for a 3-year term ending March 2025. Invited Dr. Larry Green.
Good evening, Dr. Green.
Good evening.
You have anything you'd like to say to the members of the council?
Just to say that I'm excited about the opportunity to work with the council. I think that I might be able to bring a little stuff to make the council a better place.
Thank you. Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Let the senior citizens do it.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Ordered that the city council...
Mr. Chair? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to take agenda item number 13 out of order and to hear it at this time.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Madam Clerk, item number 13.
Ordered that pursuant to MGL Chapter 40, Section 4, the City Council authorizes the mayor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the town of East Bridgewater for treatment of wastewater. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan, Patrick Hill, DPW Commissioner, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer, David Sheedy, Board of Selectmen Chair, Peter Spagone, Board of Selectmen Vice Chair, John Haynes, DPW Director, Jason Trepanier, Water and Water Division, Fran Januskiewicz, Weston and Sampson, Steve Peterson, Weston and Sampson, Chris Kenny or John Clifford, Clifford and Kenny Town Council, Charlie Sealing, Town Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, good evening, members of the committee. I want to thank all the people that he invited guests. I know there was a Scribner's error and the solicitor wasn't invited, but I can tell you that this IMA is very similar in scope to the one that we recently brought before you for the town of Avon. This, much like that one, was created and discussed at the beginning of the late Mayor Bill Carpenter's realm. When Bill was the mayor, they were negotiating in good faith with our friends in East Bridgewater. I would tell you that when I became mayor, I asked then Commissioner Larry Rowley and Dave Norton to do an analysis for me because, as I said before, and I've said it many times, I'm the mayor of Brockton, not East Bridgewater or Avon. I want to make sure that we have enough resources for our own taxpayers and business owners. And they assured me, they have a letter assuring me that anything that had been started under Mayor Carpenter or Mayor Rodriguez would be sufficient and not take away from our sewer or water resources. And that's important to state on the record. I also want to tell you that it's limited in scope to a certain project, but our friends in East Bridgewater have done Zooms with us, with Pat Hill when he was in his previous position and now as the commissioner as well. Troy Clarkson, the CFO, has participated in those as well. So I'm here tonight to support this endeavor. It makes sense for the city of Brockton. It definitely makes sense for East Bridgewater. Again, it's limited to their development. I want to make it clear that in Ward 4, the councilor and I are opposed to a discussion of something that may or may not ever come to fruition at the old Knights of Columbus off of Plain Street. This before you has nothing to do with that project. It's nowhere near that endeavor. But I also just want to let you know that I feel confident tonight to support this wholeheartedly. I believe it's in the best interest of the citizens and taxpayers, the people that elect us, and the folks from East Bridgewater are here tonight to answer any questions, as is Pat Hill and Troy Clarkson as well. So I humbly ask for your support on this endeavor. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Peter Spagone, Board of Selectmen, East Bridgewater. First, I want to thank the mayor for those kind words. He actually helped me out. I don't have to say as much coming forward here. But what I will say is that this has been a long process for East Bridgewater. We eventually got to this point. We started this process back in 2018. COVID, of course, shut us down for a period of time. We came right back to the mayor's office, and I think we've got a very solid plan. What we'd like to do this evening, I'd like to introduce our town administrator. He'll give you a little insight to the actual development that we're talking about, and then we'll have a short presentation on what's actually happening in that area. Because I think what most of the councilors would like to do in the city, in the South, would want to know is, what are we building in that area? What are we doing? What are we helping not only East Bridgewater, but the surrounding areas, and Brockton obviously being one of those areas? What do we give back to your community as well? So let me bring Charlie Seelig, who is our town administrator, and then he'll go from there. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Thanks very much for having us here. This intermunicipal agreement will be providing services of a sewer connection from the city of Brockton to the town of East Bridgewater to allow increase in commercial development along Route 18 and North Bedford Street, but also for housing, which can benefit both our communities. The city will see a sustained revenue stream to assist in helping support its sewer system with spreading the cost out now to more ratepayers, something, my estimate is probably about $250,000 a year in terms of revenue, along with another $150,000 of one-time connection fees. We see this as a positive for both our communities, with jobs, with housing, and we look forward to working with you all on this. We have experts from Western Sampson here. Steve Peterson's going to be presenting to you some of the highlights of what the plan looks like, what might be brought in for this area, and how everything would work. We have counsel here if there are any legal questions. And Steve?
I got your back. Thank you, Charlie. As he said, I'm Steve Peterson with Weston and Sampson Engineers. I mostly wanted to give you kind of an overview of where this area is in East Bridgewater, what we're talking about, this IMA impacts. And I can't see the screens, so I do have, I basically have 3 figures. I also have handouts, if that's, you guys can all see it on your screens, but if you want handouts, I can provide those to anyone that wants a handout. But that first figure is just a big overview of the area that we're talking about. So the red boundary is basically the proposed sewer district. I'll go into a little more detail on that in another figure, but that's the area of East Bridgewater that we're looking to, at some point, be able to provide sewer service for through this IMA. And it's basically bounded by the Whitman Town. So this is Route 18 on the right side of the red line. Highland Street is in the middle, and then the Whitman Town line is to the north.
My phone.
The intent is basically to have a pump station down in the front corner of this parcel out near Route 18 and near the Whitman Town line. Gravity sewers within the area, collecting flow from Highland Street over to the pump station. And then the dotted line is a force main, and that's how we're going to transport the wastewater to the Brockton system. So the gravity sewers will collect it at the pump station, and then the flow will be collected there. It'll be metered on its way out of the pump station, and the force main comes up onto Winter Street, and then the blue dashed line is a continuation of the force main as it makes its way along Winter Street to Summer Street, and then to Thatcher Street, where it crosses into Brockton and connects into the existing 27-inch interceptor in the city of Brockton. And this is the location we've worked with the city DPW in terms of the best location for a connection where the capacity exists in the existing system. So we would connect there, and from there it gets transported to the treatment facility. So that's kind of an overview of the system within Brockton itself. So the total force main is about 14,000 feet. The only section that's within Brockton is about the last 1,400 feet on Thatcher Street, just to get from the city line into the existing sewers. And, you know, all of the infrastructure will be installed and funded by the town of East Bridgewater under the city of Brockton's regulations, making sure we meet all the sewer regulations of the city. So that's kind of the overview of the layout. Because the laptop isn't charged, I can't reach over here. Just to get a feel, I'm sure you're all familiar with where we're talking about in Brockton itself, but that's just kind of an aerial ortho photo of this section of Thatcher Street that we're talking about. It's a commercial district. You've got the auto sales and auto repair businesses along there with the landfill out in the back. So just to kind of get a feel, if you haven't driven this corridor recently, that's the section where the force main will be coming from East Bridgewater into Brockton.
The junkyard.
So then in terms of the sewer district itself, This figure here kind of defines the properties within the proposed sewer district. So the town is looking to vote this in as a sewer district at the upcoming May town meeting and go to the legislature to form it. Some of the key properties in here are highlighted in the different colors. So on the northern part of the property, we have a developer, USC LLC, that is looking to put in multifamily housing, something that the town of East Bridgewater is in need of. So this will definitely provide housing. There'll be a 40B aspect to it. It's a LIP project, local initiative program project. And so that project is kind of one of the cornerstones on the northern part of the existing area. And it'll be about 240 units of housing when it goes in. As we move to the south, the blue is just some town land that is currently landlocked and really unusable. This whole area, the soils are just not suitable for any significant discharge into the ground. Title V systems and stuff, they're very limited. This commercial district is very limited in what they can build out here in this area, and that's where the real need for the sewer comes in. And then as we move across the parcel, we've got developers on the yellow property and the orange properties that are currently looking to move forward with some large warehouse-type projects. Going to bring a lot of jobs to the area, a lot of jobs to the community with those projects. And then as we get the sewer out to Highland Street, it provides frontage for the purple property, this is all owned by Equity Industrial Partners, and this is land that is primarily healthcare. We have the existing facility that's already out there. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my notes here. So we have the Compass Medical Facility, and then there's also the Hart Hanks building there. But they are currently working with an entity to bring a 120-bed hospital facility in there, which they cannot do without sewer or building a treatment plant themselves. The facility that they would like to bring into that area. And they'd also like to be able to bring in an outpatient facility in the not-too-distant future. So some other things that land is kind of intended for, but they're really limited right now by what they can get into the ground. So a sewer option is something that they really need. And so these are some of the partners with this, the town of East Bridgewater, some of the things that, the reasons that are pushing them to move forward and work with the city to be able to move forward with this IMA. And I think that's kind of an overview of the area and what we're looking to do. So I think we would entertain any questions.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, sir. So I just wanted to talk about the agreement itself a little bit. First, I'd like to state that I am a proponent of regionalization, and I think Brockton should be leveraging our excess wastewater capacity to the benefit of our city. So from reading the IMA, it states that you're looking for 27.4 million gallons a day. That is a million gallons over a 12-month rolling period, which works out to about 75,000 gallons per day in your usage.
75,000 gallons per day is what we're looking for initially, and then, so that's what the IMA would allow at this point, and with the ability to come back if the town wants additional flow.
Right,
as things develop, So instead of just taking more than we need right now, that's what we need to build the projects that we're talking about here.
Okay, and so I'm glad you bring up expansion, because from just what you said, there's an expectation that this water district would expand with more development. Is that correct?
So the district boundaries are outlined, but yes, if more development occurs.
Within the district, yes.
Yep, within the district, yes. And we had talked, so when we met with the city, we talked about a higher flow than the 75, and it was agreed that they didn't want to just do the full amount and have it all allocated right from day one. They want to make sure that East Bridgewater is using it. You know, we're not talking about, you know, tripling that, you know, maybe 100, 150,000 at the end would be the most that East Bridgewater would need for this area.
So
That's what we
potentially
talked.
doubling the
Potentially.
current 75,000 gallons.
Yep.
And then, so if you require any daily usage above 20,000, you would have to come back to the council to ask for an increase.
Correct.
Great. Secondly, also this IMA basically provides for a $10,000 penalty if you're over your 12-month rolling average. If any month is over the 75,000 gallon usage, there's a penalty associated with that. Is
Correct.
that okay? You brought up a $100,000 connection fee. Now, that was payment above and beyond any cost of the connection, right? This is a fee to Brockton
That's a
simply
fee
for connecting
to connect.
to our wastewater main.
Yep.
All right. Excuse me. And speaking of that main, I understand that's a 27-inch interceptor main, which will tie into our corresponding main on Thatcher Street. Do we know where on Thatcher Street this main will connect?
Yeah, so ours is probably an 8-inch force main that's coming over. Your existing sewer is 27-inch, just to make that clear. So we're running a force main from our project area and tying into an existing 27-inch force main. It's near Massasoit. So it's just down from, closer to the East Bridgewater line from Massasoit.
But it will be on Thatcher Street?
On Thatcher Street, it's in Thatcher Street.
Okay, and I see Pat,
And he could answer it better than I, but I'll do my best.
okay, yeah, Pat, just quickly on that, if you got a second.
I try.
No worries, no worries. So that 27 interceptor runs from Crescent Street over through the rear of Massasoit, across Thatcher Street into the Beaverbrook pumping station, which is located kind of in the rear driveway of Everett's Auto Parts.
Okay, so would any of the hookup require you tearing up Thatcher Street to access?
There'll be a portion of Thatcher Street, so that would be the, I'm trying to get my bearings here. I guess it would be to the south of Everett's where it would be hooking up. So anything from the south of Everett's towards the East Bridgewater line would be torn up, yep.
So, I mean, we know the current condition of Thatcher Street. It's pretty bad down at that line. Yep. Would we be expecting the repair just to be the regular 3-foot patch, or are we looking for a full repaving?
Restoration will be the street.
The okay.
Yep.
Okay, and obviously, the city of East Bridgewater would be responsible for that repair, at least according to this IMA.
That's correct.
Great. So I did have some questions about the formula that's being used to calculate basically what you'd be paying to the city of Brockton. When is that formula determined? Because I know it's kind of a to-be-determined number. So when exactly do we find out what fees are being paid under this IMA?
That would be great.
So outside of, when we bill like the town of Whitman, the town of Abington, all those figures are done at the end of the year. So it's done on a total daily flow versus total yearly average versus our yearly average, and the percentage comes off like that.
So I forget, what was the start date on this, if approved?
I believe it's July 1st.
So, okay. So that's when we say yearly, we're talking the fiscal year, or for a year from the start date?
We bill on the calendar year.
Okay, so,
So it's January 1 to January 1, or January 1 to December 31st.
okay, so it'll be 6 months this year, and then the full year starting next year.
That's correct.
Will the city council have that number as to what the final fee is at the end of this calendar year? We can provide that?
If you want it, we can get it to you, yep.
Okay. And then, this is an IMA that we would hope benefits the city of Brockton. So what is the benefit? Is there any premium to this, or we just go by the highest block rate, or how's that determined?
It's based off the highest block rate. We get a percentage of flow, which helps contribute into, the improvements that are done at the plant. That's why that percentage-based formula was originated. They also pay a usage, I believe, I'd have to read through but per unit, like the city's service fees are applied to any service that is taken off of their sewer main. So if there's a building with 6 water meters, they'll get 6 service charges.
Okay, our usage fee charge.
The service fee charge, yep, the service charge, yep.
Okay, understood. And you just said it was, the overall total is billed out at the highest block rate?
Correct.
Okay. So in your opinion, does the city of Brockton have the capacity to fulfill this agreement?
I believe it does, yes.
So I also remember in the IMA, it states that East Bridgewater would also contribute to capital improvements of the wastewater treatment plant. Would that include?
That's all in that formula, so that I was just talking about, but I'm sorry if I.
Okay, so it'd be nothing above and beyond. So whatever they pay, that goes into our fund, which then all those monies can be used for capital improvements. It's not any. Because my question would be, we have a prospective improvement to the wastewater treatment plant, the sludge drying issue,
Yes.
or whatever that is.
Yeah.
Would there be any direct contribution for that improvement?
It generally has anything to do with compliance, so with the sludge drying process, yeah, it would be a compliance issue.
Okay.
It's ours.
Then lastly, and this may be for the city, so I understand there's going to be a future vote with the town council to move forward with the proposed development that you're speaking of. If that development is voted down in your town council, do you still move forward with this IMA?
I think, so the vote we need is for construction monies to build the project. So there's at the May 7th town meeting, the town will be voting an article to support construction of the project. So separate from that, they're working with the developer on the housing project. Is that what you're talking about? So whatever ends up getting built at that site, if this 40B that's out there now falls through, I think it's the town's intention still to go through with the IMA, and something else will come in there. Once you have sewer, something will come in there.
Understood. So it's not contingent on any development being voted in by the residents of East Bridgewater?
That's critical.
Okay. Understood. I mean, ultimately, as you said, Mr. Mayor, this is similar to our Avon IMA, and I think this council approved that IMA at the time. Sounds like we have the water capacity to make this happen. And again, it sounds like it's going to be benefiting the residents of Brockton through a connector fee, repairs to Thatcher Street when this main is put in, and build out at the highest block rate with the additional user fees for every meter that hooks up to this. So I think ultimately this is in the benefit of the city of Brockton, and I appreciate your time. Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro, followed by Counselor Minicello.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I represent Ward 4 on the unfashionable south side of the city. We do abut West Bridgewater and East Bridgewater. So of course, I'm concerned about what your use is going to be and the capacity and all that. And so I noticed in the IMA, which I did get late this afternoon, that you're contracting for, as you just discussed with Councilor Thompson, 27.4 million gallons per 12-month period, which is 75,000 gallons per day. And I did speak with Commissioner Hill earlier this evening, and I understand the plant has a capacity of 18.5 million gallons per day, and the city is currently using on a rolling average 17 million gallons per day. So we do have some space to sell and to be good neighbors. I'd like to go back over, I did get a copy of a summary memorandum prepared by Weston and Sampson in January of 2021 for the benefit of the East Bridgewater Board of Selectmen. And I would like to go back over what those different colors represent and the land that is in this district. On page 2 of the memorandum, it states that the entire project area, including the relevant property south of Highland Street, is zoned for industrial use. And I'm wondering, this green area that's at the top of the picture on the north side, is that where Foxborough Company used to be? Is that what that is? It's further down.
Could I raise a point of information just for a minute? I'm sorry to
Counselor
interrupt.
Farwell.
And I've spoken to Mr. Seelig prior to this meeting. Most of us do not have this agreement. It came out at 5:13 this afternoon, and I have to be honest with you, I did not have the time to print it and read it and then prepare, hopefully, halfway intelligent questions to offer to the group. And that's not East Bridgewater's fault. They sent it over here on the 17th of March. So my point of information to other counselors who are asking questions and to the public at home, most of us have no idea what you're reading from. I don't have the memorandum, I don't have the agreement, and I told Mr. Seelig my preference would be that they make their presentation and then we take a look at the questions that we may have. I definitely think we should have our city solicitor here. She was not invited, and this is a binding legal document. And so please proceed with the questions, counselors. But for some of us, we're just sitting here like bumps in the log and unable to follow along with what you're referencing or to ask questions that I think might be germane to the agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Yeah, there was a sort of an error with the distribution of that. So we're going to work on addressing that in the future. And we did talk about handling this matter at the end of it. But if counselors have questions now, we're gonna take them. So, Councilor Nicastro, sorry
Thank you.
about that.
I was able to get a copy. I requested it this afternoon, and that's why I have this and was able to read it. So tell me.
So the green property is not the Foxborough Company. That's down below Highland Street. And so the figure you have is not the same as the one that's up on the screen. I think it's similar, but that memo's over a year old. So some of the things have evolved since then.
Okay, and so at the time this was prepared, January of 2021, was a 40B project anticipated in that green area? Because it seems like this only addresses industrial development.
There was knowledge that they were looking to do some type of housing development on that green parcel, yes.
Okay. And what about the blue area?
That's town land.
Pardon?
So it's vacant town land.
And what is that intended for?
Right now, they can't do anything with it because there's no roads to it.
It's landlocked.
It's landlocked right now. So I don't, we don't know right now what the town's intentions are for that. But other than this could provide options for it if the sewer comes through there.
But it's zoned industrial?
Correct.
Okay, so there's opportunity there. And what about, you mentioned in the purple area, a 120-bed hospital facility. What sort of a hospital?
So it's U.S. Health Vest. Can you guys, the specifics of it? I mean, it's a...
Yeah, so just to touch on a couple of the points that you just made. So we did hear, originally, the landowner I want to touch on the residential area first. When we heard from Mr. Cirbelli, originally what he was looking to do was do some housing, but was limited because of some wetlands and obviously the system that he had to build. So when we proposed the idea of, potentially getting sewer, that changed the whole scope of the project, and he came back to us with those units and with that build out. So we're working with him on what they call a friendly 40B. So we have some say. The town has some say on what's done there as well. As far as the Compass Medical, we have met with the directors of equity. So when Compass Medical was built, which is a very large facility in East Bridgewater, and is used by many different residents from all around the South Shore. They were originally looking at doing another 100,000 square feet of building. But once they got into the property and figured out what the septic system was going to be that they had to build out, it limited to the space that they have right there. So now what they're doing is, now that they have this potential, this opportunity, they are reaching out to different companies around the country. So US Health Fest is out of New York. It's some sort of mental health facilities that they do, I believe. They are negotiating with them, and what they hope to do is actually have them as a partner with Brockton Hospital, Good Sam. So they're working with those facilities too, because of some overcrowdingness and things of that nature. Very early talks with them. Like I said, we're just looking for potentials to not only find the commercial end of it more so, but obviously the residential as well, because we feel like it's an opportunity to not just create the jobs, but the housing as well.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I just wanted to say that as it's been presented and based on what I've been able to read very quickly, that we can be good neighbors, and we should be. I'm very familiar with this stretch of Route 18. I buy my milk at Peaceful Meadows and occasionally an ice cream. So I do know this area. I can see you developing that. It makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Minichiello.
Good evening. With respect to the blue highlighted area, you said that's landlocked town land? Yep. And the soil is unsuitable presently for development?
Yep, the soils are not good for on-site systems, and there are wetlands that limit the actual developable area of that land.
So if this project is approved, would that change the landscape of that land, or some of it?
I mean, it would provide the town with an opportunity to entertain options to do something with that land within the zoning that they have.
And what is that zoning, and what is the acreage that perhaps would be developable in the future if sewerage is available?
Sure, go ahead.
So along with these larger projects that we're talking about, we do have some smaller projects, well, not really small, 30,000 square foot building is adjacent to this property. It's going to be a sports facility, some baseball, I believe some basketball courts. So what this does, this land right here, what the town's talked about to this point is the potential of really kind of developing that area and utilizing that space for whatever comes in there. So if it ends up being a park that can accommodate the families that come in from all sorts of ways to utilize that, that's something that we'll look at. We also have the potential for that 30,000 square foot building that's warehousing that's going to be out, not 30,000, was it 100,000? 400. Geez, I'm sorry. 400,000 square foot building that they have a proposal on the table for right now. That, again, this would help us to move some of those workers over to an area where they could, sit outside, they could eat, things of that nature. So we're not sold on the fact of, using this land to build anything at this point. We're really just going to see what the focus of that area ends up being, and then try to, utilize a piece of land that is useless to us right now if this potentially happens.
What would the acreage be of the potentially developable
36,
land?
I believe, right? Is it 36?
I think it's around 30 acres.
Yeah, about 30, between 30 and 35 acres.
And with regard to I guess this would be for our side, with regard to the infrastructure and ongoing maintenance of the pipes and pumps and everything that's required, that would fall on East Bridgewater. I would assume that lies in East Bridgewater ongoing.
Yep. Yeah, so the whole system that gets installed would be the responsibility of East Bridgewater.
From installation and in the future.
If a pump goes, it's...
In perpetuity, I guess.
In perpetuity, yeah, it's East Bridgewater.
Okay, just want to make sure Brockton's not going to be getting a bill for work being done on next to Peaceful Meadows where my counselor friend goes to get her milk. So we want to make sure that we don't see that happening. But, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Teixeira.
I'm all set.
Oh, you're all set?
I'm all set.
All right, Counselor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilors, personally and on behalf of my constituents, I'd like to read an agreement that we're going to either recommend or favorably or not recommend. And by the way, I have no problem being a friendly environmental neighbor to East Bridgewater. But to send something out at 5:13 before a 7 o'clock meeting and expect us to read it, master it, know what it contains, I think is unrealistic. I don't know of another $500 million corporation that would operate that way. And I definitely would want our city solicitor here. So I'd like to move, and I have broached this issue with Mr. Seelig. I'd like to move to postpone this to the next Finance Committee meeting. If we have questions, we can talk with the solicitor. We can email Mr. Seelig. We come back, and then we have a full picture in front of us of exactly what this agreement says, the benefits to the city of Brockton, and are there any negatives? I don't know. We haven't discussed any negatives. I can't think of any, but I'm not an attorney and I'm not an environmental person. So motion to postpone until the next Finance Committee meeting and to invite the city solicitor to be present.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded. Councilor Rodriguez on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I honestly believe that, and I understand where Council Fowler is coming from, but the final decision rests with the City Council next Monday. So we will have a whole week to kind of ponder on this, and I would actually make a motion that we ask the solicitor and whoever else we want to have here in the regular council meeting to come in and provide us some information that we need to. But I think it's just unfair to something that started, you know, two and a half years ago in terms of negotiations with the city and the folks from East Bridgewater. We've been at this for quite some time, and I think we have finally reached a point where we're ready to move forward with this stuff for us to continue to drag our feet. I mean, I live on that side of town, and I drive through Thatcher Street on a regular basis, and just for the fact that we have an opportunity to be able to do something about the road down on Thatcher Street, to me, it's worth whatever price we need to pay to get that done. Because it's not going to get done through the city itself. I mean, I didn't see it on the list of roads that are going to be done this year. And if we have an opportunity to do it with funds that are not Brockton funds, I think it would be somewhat dumb of us to basically not take advantage of this opportunity. So I don't know how the vote's going to go. I'm just going to let you know that I'm going to make a motion that we recommend this favorably to the entire city council, given the fact that we have a whole week to look at this and study this as well as we can. And we're going to bring the city solicitor next Monday to come in and answer whatever questions we have. But to me, it makes absolutely no sense that we'll continue to. I hear this all the time, that we're trying to bring businesses in because they might, you know, pay $20,000 in taxes. Well, we have an opportunity to generate something around $250,000 a year, and we're basically looking at it saying, you know, we're not interested in doing this. And that's not the way I see it, you know, and I'm looking at it, whatever we can do to lower the tax, you know, burden on the taxpayers in this community, it's something that's worth doing. Therefore, I've said my piece, and hopefully the vote will not pass to postpone this, and I'll make a motion after the fact to recommend this favorably so that it can come back to the full city council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Let's wind it down a little. All right, councilors, the motion on the floor is to postpone this item 2 weeks. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion fails.
With that, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we recommend this favorably, but that you do include those other individuals that we basically put on the agenda as invited guests to come in and basically explain this project to us in more details if they want to. Even if it's the East Bridgewater folks that we need to ask to have to come back, they'll come back, but I think we need to move forward with this. Thank you.
Second.
So with the addition of Solicitor Bridges.
Correct.
On the motion?
On the motion, Councilor Farwell.
On the motion, just to my colleague, Councilor Rodriguez, I do understand the timeliness of this. However, this has been pending for years. A 2-week delay to allow us as elected officials to receive and be able to read the very documents that we're recommending favorably is simply not an outlandish premise to offer. So I can probably guess the way the vote's going to go. Unfortunately, I'm going to vote no, because I'm not going to vote on something I haven't read. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the motion.
On the motion, Counselor D'Agostino.
So while I share my colleague's frustration with the fact that this came through at 5:13 PM, I looked to see what the exact time was, and I'm not thrilled with that. If this were the final vote, I would vote for postponement. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the final vote. We can still vote this down if there is something that comes out in the next 6 days that is unsatisfactory to us. We could postpone it if we get to Monday and we're still not, there are unresolved issues, we could postpone it then. But I don't, because there are multiple readings in the city council, I don't, we get another opportunity to say no if we want to. So for that reason, I'm comfortable moving forward.
Thank you. All right. The item on the floor, motion on the floor is to recommend this favorably to the full city council. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. Special thank you and shout out to Vice Chair Spagone and Chair Sheedy for showing up as our counterparts in East Bridgewater.
Ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $1,300 from the Massachusetts Unwanted Opioid and Benzodiazepine Product Stewardship Program, Fiscal Year 22 Community Safety Projects Grant Program, $1,300. To City of Brockton Police Department, Fiscal Year 22 Community Safety Projects Grant Program Fund, $1,300. These grant funds will be used for the Brockton Police Department Safety Projects Education Program. Invited Michelle St. James, Grant Coordinator, Brockton Police Department, and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, Ms. St. James.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Counselor. Sorry, it was a very quiet day at the police department today, so I,
That's a
didn't
good
have any
thing.
time to, no. This grant, this is the third year we've received this grant. The first year, we also received a kiosk with it to receive unused and expired medication. And so these funds are used to pay officers to go to the CMAS site in Wareham to dispose of the medications that are collected there, and also at drug take-back days in Brockton. In the last year, the department brought over 200 pounds of medication to the CMAS site. People really do use the kiosk in the Brockton Police Department. And also, we take part in the National Drug Take-Back Days. The next one is on April 30th, and then there will be one in October. And then we also, before COVID, and we're hoping to reinstitute this now that COVID is getting better, do drug take-back days through our link-up grant at some of the high-rises in the city.
Councilors?
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Corrected order that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $75,000 from election personal services other than overtime, $20,000, and auditor purchase of services, $55,000. To auditor mail purchase of services, $75,000. This transfer is necessary due to the large mailing for the 2 elections that were held this past year. Invited Anne Marie Raymond, Interim City Auditor, Cynthia Scrivani, Executive Director of Elections, and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Councilors, I was contacted by Director Scrivani today due to a family emergency. She is unable to attend, but she did assure me that we were well looked after in the hands of CFO Clarkson.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the council. As I noted to you in the background email that I sent to you yesterday, if the wording of this proposed transfer looks familiar, it's because it is. You actually already approved this transfer, so we're not seeking your permission to transfer additional funds. There was an error in the wording for the actual location of the transfer, so the budget line of the transfer. So we're just asking to correct that language with this corrected order, and the city clerk recommended that the best remedy for that was what's before you.
Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Mr. Clarkson, just tell us, what did it say? What are we correcting?
I defer to Anne Marie on that, because I know you know the correct line, but I believe it was a difference in the actual, the line that the money was being transferred either to or from.
It was accidentally written that it was coming out of the elections purchases services instead of personal services.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
The motion has been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $1 million from Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development Legislative Earmark Funding Grant to Council on Aging. This earmark will be used to expand the Council on Aging facility to provide better social distancing within an enclosed structure and updated ventilation improvements. Invitas, Janice Fitzgerald, Director of Council on Aging, and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Do this as a team? Sure.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is, as was noted, a $1 million earmark obtained by our legislative delegation. That funds, those funds are certainly welcomed. Janice will explain to you how badly it's needed. As we've discussed with you informally, and will report to you in a more formal manner at your next Finance Committee meeting, the city intends to couple these funds with ARPA funds for a more robust renovation project to make an addition to the senior center.
Good evening, councilors. I guess that was it in a nutshell. For those of you who have been in the building, you know we're kind of busting at the seams. This is long overdue. Our older adults are living longer, which is a great thing. They're living in the community. They're looking for more programs and services. We certainly know during COVID, with social distancing and air quality, that's a big challenge for us at the Council on Aging. The building is 21 years old now, so it's getting rather aged. We're excited. We're super excited. So I'll take any questions.
Councilor Castro.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Fitzgerald.
Good evening.
This is a nice thing. I read the paperwork that was submitted to us. This is a $5 million project. So these funds tonight represent 20%. So what are you doing for $5 million? I mean, I heard the thumbnail increased the social distancing and all that, but how much space do you expect to expand? 2 stories, 1 story. I know it's not all complete, but just give us an idea.
So, significant amount of space, and I'm not being coy, but with the ARPA money, what we've done, as you know, is hired an expert in buildings and public construction. So collaboratively between our ARPA project manager and Mike Morris, our director of procurement, we have secured the services of a designer who will actually tell us that, the amount of square footage, the size and scope of the building, whether or not there are any setbacks or wetlands or those sorts of things that we need to deal with. We'll be able to, in the meeting in a couple of weeks, the designer will be on board, and Dan will be able to share with you, I think, some conceptual thoughts on what it should look like. A lot of that will also depend on the feedback that Janice and her team will provide about what the needs are for an expanded senior center. As you know, the requirements of ARPA are pretty specific, but we're confident that that portion of this project can be funded within the 4 corners of the American Rescue Plan, because there is inadequate ventilation in that building, much like there is inadequate ventilation in this building, that will enable us to use those funds to make it not only a larger but a more healthy place. And so the honest answer to size and scope is we don't know yet, but when we do, we will gladly share those plans with you.
Okay. And if I could just add to that as well, You know, we have over 16,000 older adults in the city of Brockton, and their needs are changing. So is the role of the Council on Aging in the community. They're looking for more educational, health and wellness. We have expanded our outreach department, which is critical in the city to make sure that our older adults are getting their needs met. So we really need to step it up. We're kind of behind all the other COAs. We're the smallest one in the area for the number of older adults we have in the city. So we really need to step up the game and give our older adults a nice center that they can be really, really proud of and happy of.
Thank you. I think our legislative delegation hit a home run acquiring these funds for us to begin this project.
Yeah,
Thank you very
absolutely.
much. Best of luck.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Thompson, followed by Counselor D'Agostino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Ms. Fitzgerald. Just a quick statement that I would understand that after the design of this building, if we're moving forward on this, it would have to go through all the requisite boards. If there requires a variance, it would have to go before our ZBA. It's going to have to go through our planning board. So the city as a whole, this council, will have ample opportunity to take a look at these plans and make sure, you know, and watch their progress through the boards and then advocate or not on its behalf. So this is not the last time we're going to be, you know, where we're going to be in the loop on what's going on at this building. So I just wanted to state that.
Yep, and we're hoping to do a needs assessment. So the seniors will have a lot of input as well as to how they'd like to see this project progress.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Mr. Mayor, would there be an expectation of a working committee or something like that to, you know, to work together on the development of this building? I know we've done that in the past on other projects, so I just wondered.
That's a great point. I mean, we have the Friends of the Council on Aging. We have, and you just appointed an alternate member, Dr. Green. So we have those board members as well that are going to opine. I know Janice has advocated for almost like a citizen survey, similar to what we did relative to the ARPA. I think everything's on the table, Councilor. First of all, we're just so thankful to get $1 million. That's a lot of money. But I concur with you. Whatever we can do to really hone in on what is needed at the Council on Aging, we'll do.
Great.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor D'Agostino.
Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight, and appreciate you being here. Certainly, I was kind of shocked to hear that the largest, most populous city in this area has the smallest senior center. That was surprising to me to hear that. So I'm glad that we have this opportunity to expand the facility so that our seniors have a place they can thrive. My question is really for Mr. Clarkson on the part of this where we use the ARPA funds. So I understand that the air quality, airflow is how we can do that, but we're also adding on to the building. Is that not going to be problematic?
No, not at all, because as part of the COVID-related requirements of the use of ARPA funds, that additional space will provide our seniors with more space to socially distance should they need to. So we're very comfortable that it fits well within the four corners of the requirements.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I think this will be a wonderful thing for our seniors here in the city. Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Counselor, there's one more counselor if you, all right?
Just so excited about the $1 million.
I know.
I feel like $1 million. Counselor Tavares.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Yen, and thank you so much for being here today and for also doing such a great work for the community. Actually, I met her, I believe so, months ago, right?
Yes.
And she kind of tours us. She close to my house, but I didn't even know the program before. It's something like I find it so amazing. I see she does wonderful service for those elderly. Even personally myself, I talked to a couple with elderly. They're so excited. Everybody is so really motivated, do a lot of work, and she have a couple volunteer at that time. And a lot of community talk good about it. and I'm very proud of it. If it's something I can work with you for you to get that done, we definitely gonna get that done. And in the meantime, if you need help as well with the survey for the community, definitely I know you're gonna get that. I hope you guys support that project, and thank you again for wonderful service you're doing it.
Great, thank you very much. I have a great team that helps me, so
All
thank
right,
you.
thank you. In case you need my help, I'm right across the street.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Azak, I believe you were making a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ordered that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred as the same, was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $250,000 from retirement contributory to Plymouth County OPEB Trust Program. Invited Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the last legislative session, you approved the request of the mayor to enter into the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. That is a regional trust that was set up by Plymouth County to act as a cooperative vessel to hold funds for what's known as OPEB or other post-employment benefits. That's different from the retirement obligation, which under the leadership of the mayor, you supported addressing last year. So we have nearly fully funded our unfunded liability for retirement, but our other post-employment benefits was essentially retirement health care costs for retirees. And so there's an actuarial calculation of what all of those collective costs would be if all of our employees retired on the same day. So it's really, more so than the retirement obligation, which is real. The OPEB calculation is an accounting figure. It's unlikely that everyone would leave on the same day and require us to pay that amount. Nonetheless, it's part of our financial statements, and it is an unfunded liability that we need to address. So we joined the Plymouth County OPEB Trust last year. And if you remember, when we transferred the $20 million from this year's budget to our own retirement trust fund, which we now hold in reserves, I mentioned that we would come back to you with some of that budgetary funds and ask for that money to be transferred into the OPEB trust. That is what is before you tonight. So we're seeking $250,000 out of the retirement line item in our budget. There are funds left because after we paid what's called the normal cost to the Plymouth County to the Brockton Retirement Board and transferred that $20 million, there are $285,194 left in the budget in that line. So we're seeking to transfer $250,000 to the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. That will begin to address that unfunded liability, and it will have a very positive impact on our financial statements for next year.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just to turn back time a little bit, when Councilor at-Large Rodriguez was the mayor and I was standing where you were, the legislative body at that time heard from County Treasurer Tom O'Brien. He appeared before the committee, and that city council took a vote authorizing an allotment of money to be put into exactly what the CFO just shared about. So, we got a little delayed because of COVID. That really wasn't a priority. I'll be honest about that. But we are going to honor the commitment of the legislative body, and I was part of that commitment. So really, that's why we're here tonight as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $150,000 from Commonwealth of Massachusetts Marketing Partnership, Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism Legislative Earmark Funding Grant to Mayor's Office. This earmark will be used for the creation and installation of the Marvin Hagler statue. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. I want to thank you, the President, Mr. Lally, Councilor Thompson, Councilor Lodge Farwell, Councilor Azak, Councilor Lodge Mendez. You were able to all join us today at the ribbon cutting of 28 Petronelli Way. I know you all would have been there, but work gets in the way. I understand that. But at that time, I wanted to, and I'm going to articulate again, I want to thank Jerry Cassidy, our state representative. Jerry, through his endeavors on Beacon Hill, has gotten the city a $150,000 earmark for the marvelous Marvin Hagler statue. And thanks to Councilor Thompson and the City Council, we also have a marvelous Marvin Hagler Way. So when we're at the building today at 28 Petronelli, which is going to be a game changer, it's going to be really first-rate housing development. Just a little bit down the street is where we envision the marvelous Marvin Hagler statue to be situated. Where it will be actually be at the beginning of marvelous Marvin Hagler Way. And as I said a few weeks ago when myself and Troy appeared before you, under ARPA, I've already committed to all parks within, I think I said this, I said this to Councilor Thompson, all 7 wards, playgrounds and parks in the East Side pool will get ARPA money, right? It's an infusion of money. But I also want to create a pocket pot that reflects marvelous Marvin Hagler, and that statue will be there. I've also committed a committee, which is marvelous Marvin Hagler's mom, May Lang, who many of us were able to meet today. Peter Zimbo, boxing promoter who used to work for the late Mayor Carpenter, John Marion, who was personal friends with marvelous Marvin Hagler, Robert Jenkins from the BRA, and my Chief of Staff, Sidney Merrill. They're helping in terms of working with Mike Morris because we have to put this out to bid. I do also just want to let you know that we've had a lot of artists throughout the United States of America already reach out to us about this. The sculptor that did the Bobby Orr statue and the Bill Russell statue in Boston, the Doug Flutie statue at Boston College. There's a lot of people responding to this, but all of them have shared with us that there is a delay on some materials and the like. So it can't happen overnight, we understand that, but $150,000 is a lot of money. Not as much as the $1 million for the Council on Aging, but 150 grand is a lot of money for a statue. And if we have to put more money in from ARPA for a fitting tribute of marvelous Marvin Hagler, we will do that. But that's what's before you. And again, I just want to thank Representative Cassidy because without his earmark, we wouldn't have the 150 grand. Thank you.
Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
So you mentioned the working committee, and so I'm glad that that's put together. I would have loved to have been a part of that as this was in my ward, but reading the contract, it states that all funding must be spent by June 30th of 2022.
Yep.
So that's really right around the corner.
Well, I've already, so we got 75 grand already. The city of Brockton received half of the money. That's part of the deal. We have that in the coffers. I've spoke to Rep. Cassidy because my concern is simple as what I just stated. I don't see how it can be created by the end of the fiscal year because the supplies of the bronze and the concrete are all delayed. So Representative Cassidy said that he's already going to go back to the legislators to see if they'll give us an amendment. So again, it's already in the queue. There's no promises, but a lot of it is out of our control because of the delay of COVID with supplies.
Okay, so because the contract also states if we don't spend that money by June 30th, then we have to return it, well, refund it to the Commonwealth, and I'm just hoping that, you know, that does not come to pass. So then...
Well, the 75 grand we have right now will definitely be spent because we're already putting an RFP out on the street and we're going to retain the services of an acclaimed artist.
Okay, so I was going to ask, where are we in the process? Because this, the contract lays out kind of a budget and timing of spending certain things on certain line items. So where are we? Have we spent $1 of this yet?
No, we haven't because the procurement process, we put out a, what's it called when it's not a formal request? RFP. Well, RFQ. We put out an RFQ. And that's
Qualified offers?
Yeah, and that's how we started to get some input from artists from around the nation. The procurement office, and I want to thank Mike and Danette of that, they've actually put one out on the street right now in terms of the specs and the qualifications. It's going to be life size, so it should be 70 inches in height. That's what Marvin's height was. In terms of cost containment measures, I believe much like the Marciano Stadium statue up there, a lot of that was donated in terms of materials and mason work and the installation. again, we're not there quite yet. The biggest thing is to accept the money from the Commonwealth and get the RFP, accept the qualified person. And I do want to thank May Lang, the mom, for her involvement. As we all saw her today, she is really excited about a fitting tribute for her son. And it's the best location. And as you know, I mean, that's going to be a game changer in that area.
Yeah, it'll be a great location, little parklet there to honor Marvelous Marvin Hagler, right on his street. A great location. So we have the qualified offer, or the qualified people that we would then submit the RFP in that group. Do we have an expectation when that's going to be get done?
I don't want to opine on that because Mike Morris, that's his role in terms of procurement office, but I met with him the other day to get a status update. It's out there. We're already getting some people responding, but I don't know the drop dead date. I can find that out and get it to you before next Monday.
Okay, because, I mean, you know how quickly or unquickly the state legislature acts. And so if Representative Cassidy is unable to procure that amendment, I'm just afraid that we'll lose this money.
Well, we learned a hard lesson with the Council on Aging grant that we had to refund several years back because of that. But I think the situation's different now because COVID has created, it's not a delay caused by the city of Brockton. It's just a limited supply right now is what the artist is telling us. So I know that Jerry's going to advocate like he always does, but that's the latest and greatest when I spoke to him about that.
Okay, understood. And I'll reach out to Representative Cassidy just to try to stay in the loop on that issue. This, as you stated, this is, you know, a really great opportunity for Brockton to, you know, celebrate a historic figure in our city. So I support this. And if there's no other questions.
I also want to thank you, Council. You've been a huge advocate for Ted Carmen's development, all the developments around there, and you were the one that spearheaded the naming of the street as well. Yeah. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. If there's no other input from city councilors, then I'd make a motion to recommend this favorably to the full city council.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. Thank
I do
you.
just want to remind everybody, I am heading tomorrow to D.C. We have a 6 o'clock flight, myself and the CFO tomorrow. We're meeting with the ambassador of Cape Verde on Wednesday. We're meeting with Congressman Lynch at 12 o'clock. We're meeting with him again at 6 o'clock. We're meeting with Senator Markey the next day as well. And we're meeting with Congressman Keating. Again, the whole purpose is to build back better, the infrastructure, more opera money, and also ESSER 3 on the school side. See if we can get any additional money on the school side. We met with Chris Correa and Mike Thomas today in my office with Troy. So we also have asked the Housing Authority, BAT Bus, BRA, to give us talking points, and the city planner as well, that we're submitting to the federal delegation to see if we can get any more money for the city of Brockton. And then we'll report back. We'll be back Friday morning, and we'll report back 2 weeks from tonight to give you a full update on ARPA. And at that time, Dan Pilata, the clerk of the works for ARPA, or whatever the legal name is for him, the liaison that we hired, will be here as well to present all his findings as well. Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don't forget the roads.
More infrastructure money.
That's right.
Ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $1,400,000 from certified retained earnings, water, to Department of Public Works, water, other contracted services. Invited, Patrick Hill, DPW Commissioner, and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
I got to tell the truth. Good evening, once again. So for the first time in a very long time, I'm pleased to report to you that the Water Enterprise Fund has a significant amount of retained earnings. Just to refresh either those watching at home or counselors newer to municipal finance, retained earnings in an enterprise fund are like profits in a private business. So if you have income, net income after your expenses, on the general fund side, we call that free cash. In an enterprise fund, it's called retained earnings. So the certified retained earnings available for transfer or for use for another purpose in the water enterprise, as I noted in your email, were slightly more than $7 million. $7,189,631. One of the reasons why that number was so high, there was an amount for a water project approved in the previous fiscal year's budget. Those funds were not encumbered at the end of the year, so they flowed through and became retained earnings. So the request that the commissioner is making that I support is to reallocate those funds to the water enterprise. The project is underway. Pat can update you, near complete. So this will just fulfill the city's financial obligations to complete that project. But it's cash on hand that's available. I will be back before you seeking to use more of those retained earnings for actual infrastructure projects, which will include pipe replacement and roads. Generally, and this is a more general comment, but I've said this to you before, it's my hope that in the coming years, we can wean those enterprises off of using retained earnings to balance the budget and use the retained earnings for their true intended purpose, and that is projects like this. So we're working on that, and the financial health of those enterprises is helping us get there. But this is, I think, an important step toward addressing a project that's already underway. Happy to answer any questions, or Pat can certainly talk about the project itself.
Councillor Azak, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Clarkson. Good evening, Commissioner Hill. So, it's great to have this money. Where did it actually come from? Do we know exactly where it came from?
So this the portion of it was in the budget approved, and it was unspent. And usually what you do for a capital project like that, that's the money that's unspent, is you'll encumber it. That request for encumbrance didn't occur, so that 1.4 million just flowed to the retained earnings. The rest of the retained earnings are like when we have free cash, those are revenues in excess of projected revenues and budgeted expenses not incurred. So it's the result of sound fiscal management by the commissioner, and much like the free cash in the general fund, we monitor those expenses on a monthly basis. We intentionally project the revenues conservatively so that we can have retained earnings or free cash, because the opposite of that is if the enterprise does not meet the revenue projections, then the general fund has to cover that difference. So we're very careful about the numbers that we use to project revenues to make sure that we exceed those expectations.
Okay, so let me re-ask my question. The water sewer fees and user fees that we implemented, are they included in this?
So this is for the previous fiscal year. I'm just trying to go back in my mind and the dates of when the fees were implemented versus, I think that they were implemented in the next fiscal year, so they would not have been a part of this. Is that, I believe that correct? Yeah.
So they're not a part of this?
It was just, I'm just trying to go back in my mind because we're running behind a fiscal year, so that what just got certified is FY '21. That's where this money is from. And I think that the user fees were implemented either right around then or just after then, I believe. So it would not be included in these figures.
It wouldn't, okay. Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions for both of you. Number one, you stated that retained earnings have been certified at 7.1 million. Is the 1.4 part of that number? Like once we approve this, that's 7.1 minus 1.4, I would imagine?
So we'll have approximately 5.7 to spend. I recommend during your budget process to use a small portion of that to balance the enterprise budget, but the rest will be available for project purposes.
It's at 5.7, right?
5.7 plus 1.4 is 7.1.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Just making sure
you're the math guy, not me. So then secondly, just piggybacking on what you just said, what would the expectation be for our retained earnings to fill our enterprise fund gap? You said that if our water and sewer you know, it doesn't make enough money, we have to take that money from our general fund. Now, we're in the position we have retained earnings, where any gap would be taken from our retained earnings. Do we have any expectation of what our need for the retained earnings would be this year to bridge any gaps in our enterprise funds?
I'm hoping, we're still in the process of finalizing the FY23 proposed budget, and there are some fluctuating costs, including in the water budget, an increase in the fixed fee from Aquaria. So we haven't finalized that budget yet, so I don't have a firm figure. When we submit the budget, of course, we'll have that figure. I'm hoping that the amount of retained earnings used to balance the water budget will be $1 million or less.
Okay, great. I appreciate that. Commissioner Hill. So the 1.4 is to cover the cost of Thomas Street, Thomas Circle, and Morse Ave. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so I know that there's a top coat required on Thomas Street and Circle. Do we know when that's going to be accomplished?
Usually when they mobilize the paver, so I'm assuming that they'll mobilize the paver sometime July and August to do the initial coat on Morse Ave and do the final coat on Thomas Street. So I wouldn't want to commit to that until I spoke with the contractor, but July or August would be my expectation.
Great. And I just want to say that multiple constituents from Thomas Street and Thomas Circle have reached out to me regarding the quality and the workmanship of the project on their street. They are so thankful for the replacement of that water main and the complete reconstruction of their street. You know, that is a tremendous project. Very, very, very thankful for it. And if I can just take 2 seconds to advocate your next project, and Ashfield Drive could really use the same services. So hopefully there'd be some retained earnings in your enterprise account that potentially we could use to address Ashfield Drive.
I hope so, Counselor.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Farwell.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions, Mr. Claxon. If, let's say we get through fiscal year 23 and we find out that we're generating a pretty significant surplus in the water enterprise account, because I know I think it's the plan to use some ARPA funds for infrastructure. At that point, would we look at relief on the rates for taxpayers, or morally and ethically, when would we start saying, okay, we're really managing well, pardon me, and we're using ARPA funds, now we're in a position to grant some relief?
So that's an excellent question, Counselor. Our plan, as we had discussed with you when you instituted those fees, would be to have an ongoing set of projects on an annual basis. So we're continuing to improve the city's infrastructure, either with cash, retained earnings, or taking on additional enterprise debt to fund substantial improvements in the city's infrastructure. So yes, that's a possibility, and I think on an annual basis we'll be before you to discuss what projects the commissioner proposes versus the use of those retained earnings. So it's a question that we'll answer together on an annual basis.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Minichiello.
Good evening, thank you. Mr. Clarkson, the other evening we were talking a little bit about an ordinance, a possible credit for taxpayers. Would those funds that were being discussed in any way have an impact or be affected by these items that you're discussing with us tonight, the $7.1 million?
Depending on the final wording of a proposed ordinance, it could be. I mean, I think that was an issue we discussed at the ordinance committee the other night, how we would fund that sort of rebate. I believe the legislative intent was to use federal funding for that. However, it would be possible from a finance and accounting perspective to use retained earnings for that, although it's not something I would recommend because of the infrastructure needs that we've just talked about. So when the sponsor and I discussed that at length, I believe the intent was to use federal funds, but I think as that proposal moves forward and we discuss it some more, the potential funding sources will emerge.
So if we did grant that, if we did use that funding for a credit, you're saying that it could negatively impact on plans for infrastructure that are planned or would be planned?
Well, there's a finite amount of funds available, and it's up to the collaborative work of the mayor and the city council to decide those priorities. And so I would rephrase that in the sense that you have the ability to set those priorities for what the city funds. And so I think that a rebate to citizens is an appropriate use of public funds, and investment in infrastructure is an appropriate use of public funds. And it's the responsibility of the assembled members here to really have a discussion about weighting those priorities and really deciding what's most important.
So, okay, and then in Commissioner Hill's opinion, if the council saw fit basically to credit taxpayers between $5 and $6 million, what would $5 and $6 million do for the city of Brockton in terms of infrastructure and items that need to be, repaired, in the different wards and throughout the city?
I'd want to be very careful, Counselor, and how I answer that, just simply because with inflation, the cost of materials, the lead times on materials, the increase in simple things like asphalt, our projects are growing in cost by 25, possibly 30%. So what they would have gotten you last year is not what they're going to get you next year if things stay this way. I would not recommend that. There are plenty of pipes in the city that, are from the 1800s, the late 1800s, the early 1900s. It's only a matter of time, I would think, that those pipes are going to start failing. I could give you a laundry list of pipes that need to be replaced. With those replacements comes a new road. There's nothing worse than putting a new road in and having the water main, blow the street apart after you spent a couple $100,000 in paving. So it wouldn't be my recommendation to do that, but certainly that's why you guys are here, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
I make a motion to recommend.
I'm sorry. Just go ahead, and then I'll on the motion.
Second.
Make a motion to recommend this matter favorably to the full city council.
Motion's been made and seconded. Counselor
Just
Farwell
on the motion, Mr. Clarkson, are we looking at more federal infrastructure funds coming, by the way? Am I correct that there is something winding its way through the Congress so that the amount of money we've already received is certainly not the end of what will be coming to cities and towns?
Most certainly, you are correct, Counselor, and a lot of the purpose for the trip that the mayor and I are making is to try to pinpoint and secure those funds, because unlike the ARPA funds that just appeared in the city's coffers one day, the infrastructure funds and what we hope some version of Build Back Better follows will be available through a variety of state and federal programs. And so we're trying to wade through the maze of those federal funding programs, but we are very confident that additional funds will be available.
And then the last comment I'd make, because the issue was brought up by Councilor Minicello, when the water rates were raised, the argument made was that we need to do this so we have sufficient revenue to address our infrastructure needs and then do road reconstruction. As a matter of fact, our friend Councilor Thompson, if you look at the minutes of that meeting, that was one of the reasons why he wanted water rates increases passed. Now we have the water rate increases that are enacted, people are paying them. We have ARPA funds already received, we have more ARPA funds coming in, and that is why I think the issue of giving a rebate to people is germane. you know, the Congress, there are huge infrastructure needs in this country, national parks, the military, bridges, roads, but even the Congress recognized that despite all of those, we're going to give money back to the taxpayers. And I think most of us got two $1,400 checks. I didn't send mine back saying, please use it for a bridge in Iowa. I'll be honest with you, I spent it. And so I think that's why the issue of ARPA funds and how they're going to be spent is so important to this body and to the city as a whole. And I look forward to many more millions coming in, I hope, where we can take a look at exactly what we can do for people. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. There's a motion properly made and seconded on the table.
Yes.
Just to that comment.
On the motion, Counselor Minicello.
Just to that comment, I think that after the mayor comes back from Washington, when we have a better idea of perhaps what additional federal infrastructure monies may come, then it would put us in a different position to perhaps prioritize, you know, and then have a full-fledged discussion about priorities and make a determination. You know, having $5.46 million currently that can be used for some very important, you know, infrastructure repairs, I think that that's monies that needs to be well spent, because you know, I already got today a couple of emails on roads that, two roads, you know, Shaw Road and Edinburgh Road, people want, you know, say they're disgraceful and the neighbors are signing petitions to have them redone. Well, you know, I think that there are priorities, and let's see what the full amount of our budget really will be after the mayor comes back, and then we can really have a well-informed discussion and a financial discussion about priorities and where our money should go. And I'm not opposed to giving people a credit, certainly, but, you know, we need to see what we have and what needs to be done in terms of, you know, again, the infrastructure and of the city, because some people are very unhappy with the condition of their roads and have been for a very long time. Every one of us in every ward can say, there's a bunch of roads that people would love to have a new street. That's for darn sure. You know, no one's saying, my God, the roads in Brockton are the best I've ever seen. No, in fact, they say the opposite. The roads in Brockton are the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's
Ward
7.
They come in,
Not in Ward 7. They come in off the towns and they basically say, whoa, I'm in Brockton. And, you know, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'd like to basically prioritize and see what we have for a full amount before we make that decision about where, you know, essentially $5 to $6 million is going to end up. So.
Thank you, Counselor.
On the motion.
On the motion, Counselor?
I'm just waiting for the...
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, the suspense is killing me.
You can interrupt them.
I'm just waiting for our guests. Commissioner Hill, when a road is redone, typically how long is the life expectancy of a freshly paved road?
I mean, it depends on if it's milled and overlaid, you're gonna probably get, probably 8 to 10 years out of it. If it's a complete reconstruction, probably 12 to 14 years.
Okay, so depending on the scope of the project, 8 to 15, depending on if it's an overlay or if it's a fully redone road. So it's a long-term investment when we invest in our infrastructure. Was kind of the reason I asked you that, because that's something that's going to be long-lasting and you know, better our city and better our neighborhoods for the long term. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. There's a motion properly made and seconded on the floor.
I'm sorry, may I just add, I was pausing to ask the commissioner a question, because we have some good news, actually, on that very front. The legislature approved and the governor signed the updated Chapter 90 bill recently, within the last 48 hours. And that includes an additional allocation of $100 million. So on top of our normal Chapter 90 allocation, which is the amount that we get strictly for roads, there was an additional $100 million. So what Pat and I will do over the next several days, even though I'll be out of town, we'll work together on this and provide what's a back of the envelope, but an informal estimate about what that will mean for Brockton. And that money, that additional $100 million is was termed by the legislature and the governor to be pothole money. So it's specifically to address roads in every city and town in the Commonwealth. So we'll have an estimate for what we think that will mean for Brockton. And that's something you can take to your constituents and assure them that's road-only money that'll be coming to Brockton for this year.
Love it.
A portion of that money, or not 100?
Yeah, that's 100 million.
For the Commonwealth.
Right, okay.
So
That's 100 million divided by 351. But we'll take whatever they want to give us.
A lot of high finance math tonight.
You know, you give a.
Getting 100 million, I was gonna save Counselor Farwell's ordinance is going through right now.
You give a ward counselor.
I'd even bring it up to $300.
They'll find a use for it. All right, motion's on the floor, properly made and seconded to move this favorably to the full city council. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Councilors, I believe Mr. Sannon is here. If anyone would like to move.
Motion to have Mr. Sannon come before us, so move him from the end of the meeting to now.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The motion passes. How are you, Mr. Sannon? If you'd like to come up.
And of Eddie Sannon of Brockton, Mass. as a constable in the city of Brockton for a term of 3 years. Invited, Eddie Sannon.
All right. Would you have anything you'd like to say to the councilors?
My name is Eddie Sannon. I live in Brockton for over 23 years, so I like to become a constable in the city of Brockton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to recommend favorably back to the full city council.
Motion's been properly made and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whereas world events have caused a significant increase in prices for ordinary goods and products consumed by residents in all communities, including the city of Brockton, and whereas for the fiscal year ending last June 30th, 2021, the state reported the following: surplus of more than $5.86 billion in tax revenue, State Comptroller. Whereas on March 18th, 2022, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts issued a mid-March 2022 report indicating significant revenue beyond that which was received the prior year period as follows: $75 million in regular sales tax, up $27 million versus the same period in March 2021, $27 million in meals tax, up $16 million versus the same period in March 2021. $51 million in motor vehicle sales tax, up $6 million versus the same period in March 2021. Ordered that the City Council respectfully requests our state legislative delegation file and support legislation which will reduce or suspend the 24-cent tax on a gallon of gasoline to provide relief to residents of the city and the Commonwealth. Provided further that upon approval, the city clerk shall forthwith transmit to members of the legislative delegation a copy of this order. Invited, Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. Councilor Farwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. Councilors, the tax on gasoline is one of the most regressive. It hits low-income people, it hits fixed-income people. We have a 24-cent tax on gasoline in this state. The governor recently came out on or about March 24th saying that he would not be opposed to suspending the gasoline tax for a period of time. It is something that I think is gaining some momentum, although our legislature has not adopted it as yet. But since Connecticut has done it, New Hampshire is thinking of doing it, it's putting the service stations that are on the border states at a disadvantage because people can simply go over the line, purchase gasoline, and get it at a reduced rate. I'm not demanding, requiring, I'm simply saying we should respectfully request our legislative delegation to file legislation to reduce or suspend the gas tax for a period of time, just to give people a break. And the good thing is that the Commonwealth is taking in revenues far in excess of that which was projected. As a matter of fact, they finished fiscal year 22 last June 30th over $5 billion ahead of what was projected. And now I included the additional tax revenue that's coming in so far this year through May in those three categories. So will this alone mean that the legislature suddenly said, well, we're going to do this? No. but I do think slowly momentum will build. I spoke to Mr. Claxon about it today, and I hope over time, as these world events continue, we'll be able to give people a little break in the state and a little bit of a reduction on the amount that we pay for a gallon of gasoline. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well said, Counselor. Thank you for sponsoring this. Counselor Azak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is more of a statement. I'm not sure why this is before us in the form of an order. It sounds great. I mean, I know we all want to save residents money, but this is in the state legislature. It's a matter taken care of by the state. It is out of the realm of the city council, and I feel like it's, you know, if we were at the state legislature, we'd be able to work on this, but as far as the city council, there really isn't much we can do here. So, I mean, I just, once again, I don't know why it's in the form of an order. It would have been, if we had done a resolve or something, that would have made sense, but.
Mr. Chair, through you to Counselor Azak, I discussed this with the clerk. We file resolves, and quite frankly, they're meaningless. The word resolve has absolutely no legal standing whatsoever. You could file a resolve for something, to have someone brought in to discuss something, and frankly, it has no teeth in it. Whereas an order expresses the will of the council that this particular issue is what we would like done. And that's why it came in as an order rather than a resolve.
Thank you, Counselor. So once again, I just, I'm trying to understand where, as a city council, what I can actually do with this, but thank you. Thank you. All set.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Minicello, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell if your hand was up.
It wasn't, but I'll just say that I understand the spirit of the proposed order, and so I think it's a good message to send, that everyone is hurting, but that this doesn't truly affect, many people, especially poor people who have to have gasoline to get where they need to go to do their business, everyday business. So in the spirit of things, I'm going to support this in the spirit of how it's being offered.
Yeah. Thank you, Counselor. Sorry for the confusion. Counselor Mendez.
Yes, thank you so much. I was also confused why this came as an order as opposed to a resolved, but thank you for that clarification. And also, I believe that both the House and the Senate have already rejected the gas tax suspension, and their arguments were that it's not really a guarantee that even though we're going to provide that gas tax suspension, that savings is going to pass on directly to the consumers, because it's just a free market that the big oil companies may just pocket in that savings and not really go directly to the consumers. So the intent of the legislator can be there, but we can't really force them to just pass it on to the consumers. And I also see this as also an issue that public transportation is something huge. I was in court last week, and my client had to take an Uber to meet me in court, and he paid $23 just to take an Uber, and he lives in Brockton, and it was just a 15 minutes ride, and paid $23. So I felt bad, and I drove him back home. So it really shows that need for a public transportation. And then I had another person that called me to state that the BAT bus, although it's great in Brockton, she has special needs and is blind and has to seek specialists in Easton, in Stoughton, but then the BAT bus won't even go to the neighborhood towns, the surrounding towns. So it really shows that the price of gas is very high. We have to do something, but this tax savings is not really something that will assure that it will go directly to the consumers. But with that said, public transportation could be something that we could do in order to really help people, especially with the prices of gas being so high. And that's that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rodriguez?
My question was kind of already debated, but I just want to, through you, Mr. Chair, to Council Mendes, dial a bat actually has a program to take people to the surrounding communities if they have a health issue.
Okay.
It's almost like a cab service. You know, they need to call it ahead of time to get an appointment, but they'll take them to whatever they need to do. So sometimes, not to the fault of our residents, is that sometimes we don't inform them very well of the services that exist out there, but they'll do that for residents. And I know that quite well because when I worked at the hospital, that's how we got people in and out of different places and stuff, so we'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Nicastro.
I was just going to say I support this. I support sending a message to the state legislative delegation about doing something that would benefit our citizenry across the Commonwealth. I'm not aware of the current status of it, but I don't see it harming anything. I see it only helping.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend favorable.
Second.
Motion's been properly made and seconded to recommend this favorably to the full city council. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion passes.
Ordered that the city hereby accepts as a gift from Route 24 Realty Trust 3.5 acres of land, which is situated just east of Route 24, north of the City of Brockton boundary, and west of the Brockton Reservoir on South Street, Avon, Mass, pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, subsection 53A and a half. The mayor is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to effectuate such gift. Invited, Megan Bridges, City Solicitor, and Troy Clarkson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good evening, council members. I'm here on behalf of Attorney Bridges this evening. My name's Anthony Donegan.
Hello, Anthony Donegan.
Hello. Shall I go right into it, or do you want to
Please.
ask
Right.
questions?
Jump right in. Thank you.
Well, I think what you have before you, I just put this together this evening. I think the most asked about thing was, where is this piece of land? So in the middle of the package is a parcel map from the town of Avon that I just highlighted in yellow so that everybody can see where that piece of property is. T.L. Edwards is donating that land to the city. It's not worth a lot of money. It doesn't provide, it doesn't require any, really very little taxes. I think it's about $100 a year in property tax. The benefit to the city is that it does provide a buffer between the highway and the water source, the reservoir over in D.W. Fields Park. I think, Mr. Hill, if you want more elaboration on that, he's probably most equipped to discuss that. But it is a water source protection move, so.
Thank you. Councilors?
Since it's in my ward, I recommend, it's in my ward. I move to recommend it favorably to the entire city council.
Before we do that on the motion,
No, you got to second it first.
Second.
It's been seconded. On the motion,
On the
Counselor
motion,
Azak,
I
one
would
of the
just like
counselors
to
for Ward
say
7.
thank you, even though it is not a huge dollar value. I would like to thank the Ms. T.L. Edwards for the donation. I think it's, thank you from the city of Brockton. Thank you.
Motion.
Thank you. On the motion, Counselor Nicastro.
Thank you. Good evening, Attorney Donegan. The land appears landlocked, is that right?
I believe it is, Counselor, and it's also, it abuts Route 24 on one
Yes.
side. So I don't think that there'd really be any significant space to even build on.
Right.
And it is awfully close to the water source, so I think it makes sense to leave it. I could sort of, I just informally, I could see where, that might be a spot for the school systems to maybe take kids to and talk about water source protection and things like that. And there's sort of a civics and a science endeavor. But other than that, it's really not it's not a buildable plot. It's not anything that the city can really use other than water source protection.
Open space that we own.
Right.
I noticed in
such a
the
bad
packet
thing.
that you handed out this evening, you gave us a copy of the water intermunicipal agreement with T.L. Edwards and the town of Avon.
Yes.
Is it, I looked very quickly, I couldn't find it mentioned. Is this part of the deal?
Yes.
It is not part of the gift of land. The gift of land was just done independently of that. It
Okay.
was just a gesture that T.L. Edwards made.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Now, I believe there was a motion made and seconded to.
From the ward
send-
counselor.
From the ward counselor, Counselor Rodriguez. There's been a change. To send this favorably to the full council. All those in favor? All opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Donegan. Councilors, are there any moments, there's no other business, is there any moments of personal privilege? Counselor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to inform the public that this Saturday, I'll be holding a Ward 5, a downtown spring cleanup event. This will be held, as I said, Saturday, April 9th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll be meeting at the Lincoln parking lot. That is the parking lot across from City Hall on Montello Street. This event is sponsored by the Metro South Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Brockton Business Association. Cleaning supplies will be provided. Additionally, refreshments will be provided by C&J Soul Food. We'll be having pastries and coffee in the morning, hamburgers and hot dogs in the afternoon. This is a family-friendly event. I hope my fellow city councilors, anybody working at City Hall, can come out and join us. And, you know, we're going to clean up downtown and the ward. So thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else for a moment of personal privilege? Counselor D'Agostino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder that there is a Ward 3 ward meeting coming up Wednesday, April 13th, 6:30 at the Kennedy School cafeteria. So hope to see as many people there as possible. It'll be the first one that we've had since I was elected. So this will be my first ward meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. If there's nobody else, we are adjourned.
Hi. Starting April 7th on BCA, we got a new look. We have public, educational, government, and HD. Look for them all.